This is the Freeheel Life Podcast, episode number 103. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And welcome back to some Telemark Pirate Radio. Protectors of the turn, Freeheel Lifers, knee droppers, hippies, punks, misfits, all of you out there. Thanks for tuning in. And good to be back. Hopefully you guys all had a great weekend. Got a little refresher and got some time with the family and friends. And hopefully you're gearing up for some skiing if you haven't been out yet. So our opening day at Alta, which is generally our home mountain for the Freeheel Life team, is Saturday, November 20th. So we're less than a week away. Ready to rock and roll. And we're super excited to get up on the hill and start making some turns. So with that said, all pistons are firing at the shop. Team's really working hard to get everyone taken care of before opening day. Lots of mounts, lots of fixes, new skis, new bindings, new boots, accessories, parts, all that good stuff. So you can always hit them up at customer service at freeheellife.com or give them a ring. Shop's open Tuesday through Saturday. During the week, it is noon until 7, Saturday 10 until 7 if you're in Salt Lake, or if you're trying to get a hold of anyone on the phone, those are the hours to do so. So, stoked. It's crazy. It's like we've been doing all these podcasts, talking about snow, talking about getting ready for the season, talking about exercising, talking about mentality, what we need to do to get ready, talking to other people from around the globe, what they're doing to get ready, and here we are. It's time to start skiing. So November's flying by. Soon enough, we'll be in December and heading towards the Christmas season. So today I'm going to kind of be doing sort of a news roundup and then a few responses to some emails I've gotten that kind of fit in the mix with all of that. And I'll be getting back to some great guests in the coming weeks. Been trying to book a bunch of new people. I've got someone that's living in Japan coming up. I've got someone who was around the old BD days. Black Diamond. Sorry, I got to make sure I'm saying the full length words so everybody knows what's going on. And I'm trying to think. I've got a buddy from Sweden, Norway. I don't know where he's living. Somewhere in Scandinavia. But yeah, I got some really great folks coming up. With that said, before I hop into doing kind of this news roundup, I wanted to mention to everyone out there, if you are someone running an event, a Telemark event this year, no matter how small, large, medium size, whatever, at a resort, I would love to chat with you on the podcast. So, and I would like to be able to promote those events as sort of a community builder. So this can be worldwide. I'm trying to, today's kind of, I'm not getting so much into the events. I tried to dig some stuff up. There wasn't a whole lot out there yet from sort of the usual suspects. But you folks that are running some of those things out there, I would love to talk to you on the podcast, talk about what's going on, talk about the history of your event. I think that would be really, really cool. So reach out to me, podcast@freeheellife.com. And let's try to connect and just kind of start. I think this is a good time of year to start sort of collecting all of the data that's out there in terms of who's doing events. Maybe, I know it's kind of been up in the air the last couple of years with COVID and a lot of this stuff because things aren't necessarily happening like they normally do. But if you are in an area where it is happening or you have something penciled in, at least let's start talking about it and kind of help people know what's going on. I would love to hear from you. So podcast@freeheellife.com, event organizers, hit me up and let me know what is going on. So the first thing I want to hop into today that kind of was on my radar is for all of you Canadians that live near the Ontario area. And big shout out to my friend Holly Blefkin, who you may remember if you are a dedicated podcast listener. If you go back to episode number 64, I had an amazing conversation with her, and she runs Ski Telemark, which is going to be celebrating its 38th anniversary this season, which I think is very much deserves a congratulations. Anybody who's ever run any sort of business within Telemark for 38 years deserves all the credit in the world. That's definitely nearing any of the long-standing Telemark organizations of any sort, honestly. And I'm saying the whole gamut across the board, whether manufacturers or event organizers and whatnot. Dickie Hall, probably one of the ran one of the oldest North American telemark organization, NATO, as it were, for 40 years. So I'd say Holly coming in at 38 years this year. Congratulations, Holly. Proud of you. Way to hang in there. If you're not familiar with Ski Telemark, they have a mobile fleet of equipment that they take around. They do events, instruction, and they have had a clientele for many, many years. So they're going to actually be kicking things off for their season. They have the annual Ski Telemark Warm-Up Day. It's scheduled for Saturday, December 4th. The backup's going to be December 11th at Mount St. Louis Moonstone Resort. So they have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of programming for the upcoming season. And you can check that out at skitelemark.ca. And you can find out more about what they do, get in contact with them. And I just wanted to bring that up because, like I said, as far as event organizers and people doing things, I absolutely love people that have just stuck it out and they figured out a way to build a business within Telemark and help people get into the sport. And if you go back and listen to that episode number 64, Holly's, I don't know how you even count the influence that you have over 4 decades, but that's how you grow this thing. And there's no quick fix to growing something. And she's a true protector of the turn, and her staff, and everyone who helps those events run. That's how we share the turn. That's how we protect the turn and pass it on. So big shout out to Holly and her crew up at Ski Telemark in Ontario. I thought that was kind of I put that front and center in terms of news and stuff that's going on. I thought that was a pretty cool thing to bring up. So go check it out, skitelemark.ca. And I'll try to remember to keep those events in our newsroom and notes section as we kind of progress through the season, and make sure people know what's going on, because I know people are listening from all over the place. So that is a good one to start with. So this second piece of sort of news, this kind of popped up. Someone sent me this, and I thought it was worth bringing up because, we're always talking about gear. We're always talking about new gear. And I just thought this was kind of an interesting one and wanted to kind of read through the press release and talk a little bit about it, share my thoughts on it. So this is an interesting piece of news and kind of falls in line with honestly, if you follow the business of skiing, there's it kind of, and I'm talking the broader business of skiing. We're in an interesting time, and I've obviously talked about this a lot. If you're a frequent podcast listener, I'm always sort of promoting the idea that we need to build a telemark industry. We need to have our own companies. And this is sort of the future of how we can grow this in terms of having, our own products and keep our own economy, so to speak. But, I'm always a fan of kind of following the larger snow sports world in terms of what's going on, because it's fascinating. And if you're into business and you want to get in it, there's ways to obviously find these press releases and kind of understand what's going on. The point being, much like in the rest of the world, there's a lot of acquisitions going on, small guys, small businesses picking up or getting picked up by larger businesses, obviously it's business. People are trying to get market share and they're trying to do stuff, but a lot of things get passed around a lot. And if you do follow alpine skiing, you may remember, if you go back to the 80s and kind of remember sort of the Reichly rear entry boots and the some of that era, that got acquired by K2 years ago, and they kind of rebranded it into Full Tilt and sort of made kind of like a more of a free ride boot, utilizing some of that technology and some of the molds and shapes. So it's gotten picked up again. It's gotten passed on. K2 has dumped it at some point, and this company, Full Stack Supply Company, has picked it up, and they've announced an outdoor footwear brand for the winter 22-23. So not this season, but the following season. So you'll probably see some prototypes and some stuff like that this year. So I'm just kind of reading from the press release. Full Stack Supply, parent company of Faction Skis and FW Apparel, is excited to announce the launch of a new technical footwear brand set for release in fall/winter 2022. A new generation of free ski boots harnessing the energy of free skiing culture will be the first product for the brand. Quote, "It feels like the ski boot industry needed a bit of a kick. Innovation in materials and footwear have advanced massively, and yet most boots are still uncomfortable, while style seems to have peaked 20 years ago," says CEO Alex Hoy. Quote, "We wanted something that we could get excited about, especially for freestyle, free ride, and free touring. We developed our vision with some of the great minds in ski boot development and street footwear to bring to life a boot delivering great performance, sustainable materials, and reflecting form as well as function." So I'm not going to read the whole press release, but just you get the idea. This kind of newer company, they're stoked. They've acquired this brand that's been around literally forever and kind of been tweaked and changed over the years, and they're ready to put some stuff into it. So I know this is all alpine skiing for the most part, right? Like they kind of mentioned this, they're calling it free touring. If I were just reading this and I had no context, I would think of it as, alpine touring AT stuff. But the reason someone sent this to me was one of the comments on one of the places this was posted involved telemark skiing. And so, of course, somebody sends it to me, and here I am getting this kind of tidbit of information. And I thought it was, I don't even want to say it's newsworthy because I don't even know, I'm not sure what to think about it. But I thought the comment was interesting. I'll be honest, I'm going to preface this by saying it's kind of this comment, it doesn't look official. It's obviously not an official press release. I tried to find an official press release that was a follow-up. I'm kind of thinking this is not totally real. And even someone commented after this guy's comment and kind of said that. But they took they took the time to write this. But it sparked some conversation in the online space, so I thought I'd bring it up. So anyways, this somebody brought up the rear entry maybe being good for Telemark boots or something like that. And this guy goes, "You're actually closer than you think. I just saw the following press release on Facebook, which makes it impossible to share the link. Here's some of the details." And kind of looks like a press release was typed. And it just said, inspired by the resurgence of backcountry and freeride skiing, Full Stack Supply is proud to announce 2 ski boot lines under the Full Free brand. The Full Freeride line targets the traditional downhill side country freeride crew with a comfortable, responsive boot with the full flex bellows and 3-piece designs. The Full Freeheel line fills a huge gap in Telemark boot landscape with the lightest NTN compatible boot in the industry. Both lines will feature Dynafit compatible inserts, and the Freeride line will provide a grip walk sole. 5 Freeride models and 1 Freeheel are planned for 2023. And then later on it says, then magic happened when, this is kind of, they're saying this is a quote from the company. Then magic happened when we realized the Flex-On bellows worked perfectly for Telemark. The 3-piece technology is like nothing else, and a new patent is pending for the novel application to a Freeheel boot, says Alex Hoy, Full Supply CEO. I don't know. I'm skeptical that this is real. But I thought it was worth bringing up because it's just kind of, it's like one of those funky things that pops up on the internet, and then everybody freaks out. Everybody's talking about it. Can you imagine if this company's going to make, take this boot and make it into a Telemark boot? And look, I'm not skeptical because I don't want change. I'm skeptical because, one, it's just even the wording of this kind of looks a little suspect. But even let's go down that road. I mean, real quick, like, what if, this is the big thing, is what if a company, a smaller company like that, I agree, is more nimble and has maybe the vision or the ability to move into a space where a larger company may not be willing to take the risk. That's the greatest thing about small business, is the ability to move and change quickly. And I love that. Here's where I get a little skeptical. Taking Alpine boot molds and then trying to, and again, I've been around boot molds and whatnot in factories, but I'm not saying I am a boot maker by any means, but I do think taking some, like, that's like that part where it's talking about, realizing that the bellows work perfectly for Telemark. I'm like, Ned, I don't know about that. I mean, that's the part that seems a little suspect. And I think you could kind of just hop in and make something like that. I mean, when you're talking about making a Telemark boot, you're talking the entire flex of the sole, you're talking bellows, you're talking, all sorts of stuff in terms of like adding a second heel into that mold. I mean, there's some re-engineering that would have to go on going from that type of a boot to a Telemark boot. Could it happen? I think anything is possible. The other thing I will mention, just because this is kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, is, and I want to bring this up because this is kind of what happened with NTN, Tecto NTN, when the Olympus Mountain Gear TTS came out, and then you've got Majo follows from the M Equipment. Then you've got the links coming out from 22 Designs, and you've got kind of a TTS offshoot Volet puts out last year. Ever since Telemark Tech has started, there's been this idea amongst old industry people, and I say that loosely because people that actually focus 100% of their time in terms of business to Telemark are very, very, very small group. That's why I always say, if you're a true Telemark company, there's very few of us that do 100%. You've got 22 Designs, you've got Bishop, you've got Freeheel Life. That's pretty much it. And there's M Equipment. Sorry, M Equipment. But there's very few companies that focus 100% of their time. And honestly, a lot of these old industry people, like I said, I'm leaving that loose. They thought Tecto, and they still do. I'll go into these meetings and stuff, and people are like, Tecto Touring is the future of Telemark. And I'm sitting here like, it's not. I mean, not from the data that we're collecting and seeing. And I'll just put it out there because I think what's interesting is people, again, they don't understand telemark is growing in the resort more rapidly than it's growing in the backcountry. And the reason I think that is because, people utilize, and I've said this millions of times, you're probably like, oh my God, I've heard this a million times, but from the 80s and the 90s, early 2000s, how we access the backcountry, we as a collective body of snow sports enthusiasts, was through telemark traditionally, aside from the people that had early AT Raymer bindings, that kind of thing. But this idea that now in 2021, as we are developing tech-toe technology, that somehow is going to be where telemark grows is absolutely absurd to me. It makes zero sense. But that's the other part that's kind of suspect, going back to this full tilt thing and this full supply, I guess, is the company that sort of the parent company. For them to, I'm not saying there isn't a gap for a lighter weight boot and tech-toe, but here's the thing. If you're going to be a new boot company and you actually did get into the telemark space, and that's where you put all of your time and energy, I think you're going to sell a bunch of boots for sure. But do I think that's the end all be all? Not really, honestly. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So there's kind of some suspect pieces to that. And anyways, I'll try to link to the original. I'll see if I can find the original link to the press release, or at least this one I found. And you guys can check it out and see what you think for yourself. I'm all for anybody if anybody gets in the boot space, I think that's a wonderful thing, and I would love to see that. I have some questions. I'm sure you guys have some questions too. So that's my thought on that. There's some juicy gossip to chew on boots that is not your usual stuff. So that leads me into kind of some stuff I've been thinking about, and honestly, it kind of came from some conversations I was having with Craig Dossey, who's our editor-in-chief over at telemarkskier.com. And he brought up a couple good points, and I thought, kind of coming out of that boot conversation with this acquisition in the Alpine world and whatever thing we just talked about, I don't even know what to call it, but Craig and I were talking a little bit about kind of some things that are sort of floating out there in the telemark space that we kind of started asking each other. And mainly this was, is Scott, the manufacturer, are they still even making telemark boots? And then that kind of got me thinking about other brands that are in the telemark space, but that we really haven't seen them doing much at all. And another one is Rotofella, the binding manufacturer and the creator of the new telemark norm, NTN. So, we've talked a little bit about Scott over time. Whenever the boot conversation comes up, there's 3 boot manufacturers. You've got Scarpa, you've got Crispy, and you've got Scott. And, it always comes up, but Craig we were talking back and forth the other day, and he brings up a good point. He's like, I don't think they're making boots anymore. And I kind of thought about it. He had kind of broken the story on telemarkskier.com about the G-Rex kids boot and the Excursion being cut from the line, which that's big news because that's where we've gotten kids boots, and that's a tragedy in and of itself. But it kind of starts begging the question is, Scott had acquired Garmont's boot molds. And since they did that many years ago, I don't even remember what year it was, but they've only made Garmont boots, essentially, those exact molds of the Synergy, what was the Prophet and the Priestess boots in their own names, models, colors, with some buckle changes and obviously rebranded it to Scott. But they've never innovated on Telemark technology since they made that acquisition. So, Craig kind of posed the question to me, like maybe they haven't been making boots at all for a number of years, and now we're sort of seeing the tail end of that inventory sort of trickle away. And man, that's that when we're talking about actual news and maybe a prognosis for Telemark boots, that is a very plausible question that Craig was posing to me. And I thought it was worthy to bring up just to kind of get your brains wrapped around what's going on out there. And like I said, going back to having smaller community, smaller industry, I mean, like I said, boots are incredibly tricky because of the cost, and we all know that. And people think they understand the business of boots. I love reading online, and everybody's got their crazy boot prognosis, but it is. I mean, the simplicity of it is, or the simple matter of the simple facts are, it's expensive to make boots. It's difficult. But if we lose Scott, that's going to make the landscape very interesting. Now, it could be good if the other two brands continue to innovate, like Scarpa and Crispy. And maybe that makes it stronger and there's better market share for those two companies. I mean, of course, I want more options, but, sometimes the forest has got to burn down to get some new growth, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And maybe that's what that is. So I mentioned Rotofella too. It kind of got me thinking. Craig kind of brought the Scott thing up, and then we kind of started talking about other things. And the Rotofella thing, I especially think is interesting. And I've thought this many, many times over the years. I mean, you have a company who did literally the last big innovation in Telemark being NTN, but that was 2008. And the last binding release, no pun intended, but I guess I could say the last releasable Telemark binding they released or put out on the market was the Freedom, and that is 2010. That's 11 years ago. Okay? Literally nothing has happened since then. No innovation, no changes. I mean, you could argue there was a few changes on the free ride, but they were more like technical changes to change the chassis of the binding and stuff like that. But that was way, way early on, probably within that first 2 or 3 years. I'd say probably by 2011, 2012 max, the free ride kind of in its current incarnation has come to light. And so the Freedom binding, 2010. And they've just kind of kept it going. But we're kind of starting to see, I don't have any official details, but I think we're starting to see that trickle out. And I do know for a fact, this is kind of what happened with Rotofella 75 millimeter bindings. And I can say this with surety because Freeheel Life in the very beginning of when we opened 2014, 15, 16, we were the North American distributor for 75 millimeter Rotofella, not the NTN stuff because Scarpa was doing that. But I can tell you that that's kind of how it went down with the 75 millimeter stuff is they basically had a lot of leftovers. We were still distributing parts for the R4, the R8, 75 millimeter bindings, and the Chili for the parts that they had for that stuff. And we were still putting that stuff out. And then when it ran out, it was done. And honestly, I don't think we ever put anything out official on it. It just sort of ended. And I think that's, I think that's part of what we all need to be paying attention with is there's sort of these abrupt endings that it kind of seems like things are going sort of well. Oh, cool. Like there's still product and then blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it's just done. And, you could argue 75 millimeter from that particular brand maybe wasn't, from the business side, you might be thinking, oh, well, of course, like you're going to let it run out. But I'm just saying in as a consumer, as a retailer, as these are things we need to be watching. And I think what I'm trying to relate it to is when you haven't made a new binding in 11 years, and you're just kind of floating there, that might be the writing on the wall. I don't know where they'd go from there. They're one of the most iconic Telemark brands, that's been around since like the 1930s with the original rat trap, which is what Rotofella means, rat trap. You think of like a 3-pin clamping down. It'd be incredibly unfortunate if they get out of the Telemark game. I don't know what they probably just focus on Nordic, which is the bulk of their business. But that would be a super bummer in terms of just having a historical brand bow out. But honestly, after 11 years of not making anything, like that's a pretty good indicator that you're probably not going to take more risk and innovate on something. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. And I'm probably just spreading gossip. None of this is official. I'm merely bringing it up because I think it's interesting and I think it's worth thinking about. I totally think it's worth thinking about. And so that kind of leads me in. I wanted to just bring up sort of, because this is sort of a news roundup. I'm talking about boots. I'm talking about, what's going on, in the boot world, the binding world. The most common question that's come up over the last few years is, when is the new Scarpa boot coming out? I'm not seeing anything on the horizon that's going to come out this year. And I don't know what's happening in 2022-23 season. It could. I just think this is a bizarre time where there was kind of some blood flowing there. We had Kim Miller on one of the early episodes of the podcast. We talked about it. He was very open about the fact that, and Kim Miller's the CEO of Scarpa North America. And he's saying, hey, things are happening. We're working on Telemark. And, I've seen some stuff behind the scenes. I know what's going on, but man, the last couple of years is kind of shaking things up. You got COVID, you've got, ski resorts closing down in various countries. That obviously changes the retail landscape. Now you're starting to see some supply chain issues. And honestly, I haven't heard anything official out there in terms of when that's going to happen. So that's kind of just that brief update on that boot. My own 2 cents, waiting on a boot. This kind of goes back to when I was talking about the Telemark Tech, NTN Tech sort of bindings and this idea of a lightweight boot. Look, if you're going to get into Telemark, you're looking to switch, you need an upgrade. It's, TX Pro, you've got everything there that you need in terms of a Scarpa boot. You could go Crispy World Cup. I mean, there's options to go with. You are not going to have as light a weight a boot as an AT boot that exists in the market right now. But if you're mostly skiing inbounds, there's some great product there for you to get into it. And I think we're at least a couple years out from seeing a new boot from anybody. Crispy, I have no idea what's going on with there. We're trying to build a relationship with them in Europe, so we kind of have a better, finger on the pulse. No, I literally can say that with all honesty. I have no idea what's going on, which is crazy. But that's what you get. So I don't think you're going to see a new boot for a while, a couple of years. So, if you're just a weight crybaby, sorry. I think it's going to be a little bit, and you're just going to have to get into doing your Telemark boot modifications and get crazy, or who knows? Maybe there'll be a new boot company. I mean, there's all sorts of weird boot news today, I guess, when you think about it. Oh man, I feel like I'm definitely more of a culture history guy. So the gear thing, just I don't know. I like gear. Don't get me wrong, and I've become more fond of it over time. But I definitely don't lose sleep over equipment, and I'm just not. I'm gonna go out and do it regardless of what's there. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's why I still ski leather boots and think it's cool. Who knows? Okay, so just to kind of wind things down with some other stuff going on. I've been bringing it up over the last couple podcasts, more in the newsroom and notes section, but I wanted to bring it up again because it just started this past weekend, and that is the Tele Colorado film tour. So it kicked off on the 12th of November at River North Brewery, and it is starting to make its way to other cities, including they're going to be making a stop here this week in Salt Lake City at the Freeheel Life Shop. They're going to be doing an underage show on the 17th, and I'm sorry, not on the 17th. On the 18th, my bad. So on the 18th, they're going to be stopping in to the Freeheel Life Shop, which is a Thursday. And then they're going to be doing Shades Brewing on the 19th, which is a Friday, for all of those that are of age and would like to drink some beverages at the show while they're watching. So, again, I want to give props to the Telemark Colorado folks. CJ and all those guys over there are doing a fantastic job. And this is 3 shorter films: Future Freeheel 2, King of the Lurk, and Why Not. So you get kind of maybe shorter films, but you're going to be seeing a lot of diversity in terms of what's going on. So I just think it's great. That's why I keep bringing it up. It's awesome seeing somebody, again, taking it on their own to make these movies, team up with other people that are making movies, finding a way to get out and show them to people and expose Telemark. And I still think movies and media of that sort, video media, is such a great way to inspire people to want to try something, or if they're already Telemark skiers, to try other things, or just be generally inspired to get together as a community and be stoked. I mean, I think that was what movie premieres were for many, many years. It was kind of a community gathering at the beginning to sort of bring the tribe together and sort of get excited, see your friends, and just get stoked about the upcoming season and pray for snow and all that good stuff. So definitely check that out. They're going to be hitting various places like Salt Lake City, Driggs, Idaho. Looks like they're heading up into Montana. And then early December, it looks like they're going to be over in the Midwest, in Wisconsin, at Oso Brewing Company. So that's in Plover, Wisconsin. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Plover. It looks like that. Anyways, Wisconsin. I know all you Midwesterners, put on your party pants. You're getting a Telemark movie out there. That's what I'm trying to say. So, and just to kind of end things up, I wanted to give, going back to Craig over at Telemark Skier Magazine, there's a couple very good pieces up. There's one I thought that was interesting to mention as a news roundup piece. It's that Zip Fit just put out a new GFT liner that was maybe not built specifically for Telemark, but hey, it's kind of built with touring in mind, kind of that category. And there's some really good information about that Craig put together in terms of kind of a cool, maybe some gear in the periphery of maybe what we normally think of Telemark gear. But I definitely think it was a good piece. I want you guys to check that out. I'm not going to go in depth on it. And then the other thing that I think that has been really great is Craig has compiled a simple Telemark boot guide This is great because this is basically an easy way for you to get a quick synopsis of every boot on the market, sort of some basic thoughts on these boots. And then for those boots that we do have a deeper dive review or a full review or video reviews, these are all things that are accessible from this simple Telemark boot guide. But it's a great way, as you're heading into the season, if you're looking to upgrade boots, maybe you picked up a used pair of boots even that you're not too familiar with, or you're in the used market. I think this is a great way. And we've been playing some catch up. People are like, like I always say, I think people sort of maybe are like wondering, I've been a Telemark forever. Why are you writing about this boot or binding that's so old? It's because it's a body of work, and this is what we're trying to do, is create a body of work where all of the information is there. And honestly, having owned a Telemark shop for the past 7 years, I will tell you, people are utilizing gear that is still from a long, long time ago. And I think it's relevant to have all that there. And if nothing else, it'll be a history piece down the road and you'll be able to look back and actually find some information about it. But I think this is a great, fantastic piece that I wanted to shed light on. It is 100% free on telemarkskier.com. It's called the Simple Telemark Boot Guide. You can go through it, utilize it as a tool, a buyer's guide, an information guide, whatever you want. Craig is the guru of Telemark equipment, and he has done a fantastic job getting this put together. And I really appreciate him and everything that he's doing with that body of work over at telemarkskier.com. And we're really excited about it. Okay, so thank you for hopping on today and listening to the podcast. I always appreciate you being here. And I had a great time. That was a fun little news roundup for me. There's a bunch of stuff going on that's some stuff you hear about and some stuff you don't. And honestly, if you're not on social media, some of the stuff you probably have no idea that it's even happening. So if you're a podcast listener and you learn something, I'm stoked. And I guess if you shut it off halfway through, you're not listening to this part of the podcast anyways. So thank you so much. For those of you that are still here with me at the end, of course, how you can support us. We want to be your preferred Telemark shop. Shop with us at Freeheel Life, freeheellife.com online, or we are in Salt Lake City. We have a brick and mortar store that's been there. We're on our 7th year of business. We have a fantastic team that are high-level experts in Telemark gear. They understand it. They can walk you through it. They can answer your questions, and they know what's up. And that is our mission, is to be a place that you can call, email, or walk into, and you know that you're speaking to somebody that speaks your Telemark language. And that's what we're excited about. Over on the other side of the business house, we've got telemarkskier.com, which I brought up a bunch today, but you may not know that we have moved. We relaunched this over the summer and as a subscription model, and you can subscribe and become a supporter of telemarkskier.com. This is where you're going to find the most in-depth articles, gear reviews, culture pieces, and more about the Telemark community worldwide and just what's going on. And we are doing this ad-free, and we are supported by the readers. And really what we're trying to do is build a firm, strong community that is behind Telemark, wants to get better information, and that's how we're fueling that project, is with your subscriptions to do so. If you're not quite interested in being a subscriber yet, like I said, there's free pieces, archived pieces, free news pieces, whatnot that you can find. The Telemark Simple Telemark Boot Guide, you can obviously get that for free, and there's some other pieces as well. And another great way just to stay in touch with us is sign up for our email list. Link in the show notes. We hit you up every week about shop stuff, magazine stuff, podcast stuff. And you can always reach out to me direct, as I said at the start of the podcast at freeheellife.com. Let me know what events are going on. Share your stories with me. I love hearing from you. And this has just been such a joy to get on and speak with you every week. And I really appreciate your support. So until next week, brothers and sisters of the turn, protectors of the turn, Freeheel lifers, spread Telemark always. Peace out.